Deep in the heart of Texas, where dust storms race across open ranchlands and quiet border towns whisper secrets older than state lines, the Los cartel had been expanding like a slow-moving fire. Town by town, block by block, business after business. They crushed resistance with fear, turning every outpost into another part of their empire. But when they turned their sights on a small dog training facility just outside Cedar Creek, they miscalculated, badly. To them, it looked like an easy target, just one woman, living alone, training police dogs in peace, no fences, no armed guards, no obvious threat. Their first mistake was thinking those dogs were just pets. Their last mistake? Deciding to make an example out of her. Quick pause. Let us know in the comments where in the world you're watching from. And if you're into stories like this, hit subscribe, because tomorrow's episode is absolutely insane. As the sun stretched across the training field, Meg Bailey moved with quiet precision, guiding Zeus, her lead German shepherd, through a series of focused pacing drills. Her style was sharp, minimal, the kind of discipline that comes from years where every move had to be right the first time. Zeus stayed close, synced like a shadow, never breaking eye contact. "Hold," Meg said softly, and Zeus froze, mid-stride, tense, focused, watching. A black SUV crept past the property line, for the third time that morning. A second later, a dusty old pickup pulled up. It was Harold Murphy, her neighbor since she bought the land 3 years back. "Morning, Meg," Harold called, stepping out. "Seen that SUV before?" "Yeah, they've been circling," she replied, scratching Zeus behind the ears. "I found fresh cuts in my fence line yesterday," Harold said, worry etched deep into his weathered face. "Sheriff Morales says the cartels are creeping up again. Started near Rio Grande, then Mission, now Cedar Creek." Meg kept her face neutral, but her mind was already racing, flashing back to nights in Coast Province. No moon, no backup, tracking insurgents through alleys with Zeus stiff at her side. "Thanks for the heads up, Harold. Coffee's fresh if you want." "Wish I could. Gotta check the rest of my fencing. Just be careful. These cartel guys, they're not just punks." As Harold's truck rumbled away, Meg turned to Zeus. "Let's bring out the team. Time for a perimeter check." Inside the kennel, Athena, Apollo, and Ares were already at attention, each trained in a different specialty: scent detection, explosive identification, tactical response. But today, they'd run together, as a pack. By the time the sweep was done, a sheriff's cruiser rolled up. Morales stepped out, grim-faced. "Got a minute?" "For you always," Meg said, leading him under the shade of the training pavilion. "Lozos is making moves," he said. "They've already hit up half the businesses in town for protection money. A place like yours, training dogs for law enforcement, that puts a target on your back." "Wouldn't be the first time," she said, her fingers brushing a scar on her arm, a reminder of a poppy field raid in Helmand Province, where Zeus had uncovered a tunnel system that saved lives. The black SUV passed again, slower this time. "These cartel boys might be dangerous," she said, watching it glide by, "but they've never gone up against dogs like mine." Morales handed her a card. "Satellite phone, direct line, any trouble you call." As his cruiser disappeared, Meg gathered the dogs. The sun was higher now, but her gut still felt cold. She'd seen this before: surveillance, probing, measuring routines. Somewhere beyond the property, she heard Spanish being spoken fast and low through a phone call carried on the wind. She didn't need to understand the words. She knew what was coming. "Let's go, team," she said, heading toward the house. "Company's coming." Miles away in a rundown safe house, Cartel Lieutenant Emilio Castillo flipped through aerial photos of Meg's property. "Just one woman," he said to his enforcer, Miguel Ortiz, "and her dogs. We'll send her a warning. If she refuses, then we remind Cedar Creek who owns this town." That night, both sides prepared, but only one of them had any idea what 4 military-trained K9s could really do. Next morning, the Cedar Creek diner was its usual hum of chatter and clinking silverware, until 3 men walked in. Sharp boots, heavy buckles. Silence followed them to the corner booth. Meg sat at the counter, calm but alert. "Coffee, Meg?" asked Maria, the elderly waitress, her hands trembling slightly. "Thanks, Maria. Everything okay?" She leaned in, whispered, "Those men, they came by after close, said we need to pay insurance now." Meg didn't answer. She just watched their reflection in the chrome napkin holder. Their posture said relaxed. Their eyes said otherwise. The cartel thought this was a small town. They thought Meg was just a woman with dogs. They were about to find out what happens when you back a trained shepherd into a corner. And this time, the ones with the teeth weren't bluffing. The way they positioned themselves, one eye on the door, one eye on the kitchen, said it all. These weren't just random guys, they were trained, intentional. Deputy Rosa Gutierrez slid into the booth across from Meg. Her uniform was sharp, not a crease out of place even at this early hour. "Glad I caught you," she said casually. "We need to go over the K9 training dates for next month." Meg gave the slightest nod toward the corner booth. "Your timing's interesting. Those guys, Castillo's crew, low-level muscle trying to mark their turf." Rosa didn't break character. Her voice stayed steady like this was just a routine conversation. "They've hit 5 businesses this week." Right then the diner's bell jingled and Zeus walked in, quiet, calm, wearing his service vest. Meg had left him in the truck, but he picked up on the tension. He always did. One of the cartel men stood. His hand drifted down, hovering near his waistband. "No dogs allowed in here," he said, sharp with a heavy accent. "Service dogs are protected under federal law," Meg replied, not even turning around. "And I wouldn't reach for whatever you're thinking of reaching for." Zeus didn't growl, didn't move, but his eyes locked onto the man's hand like a laser. The room went dead quiet. "Let's take this outside," the man growled. "That's the first smart thing you've said all morning," Meg answered, rising slowly. "Deputy Gutierrez, would you mind observing this?" Discussion? Outside, the heat was already rising. 2 more cartel SUVs had boxed in Meg's truck. In the bed, Athena, Apollo, and Ares waited silently in their secure kennels, watching, ready. "You think you're clever bringing a cop," the man sneered. "Cops don't live on your porch, and your dogs, they won't matter." He didn't even see Zeus move. 1 second he was standing. The next he was on the ground, with 90 pounds of focused muscle and teeth an inch from his throat. No bite, no blood, just a warning. "That's 1 dog," Meg said calmly. "I have 4. You might want to tell your boss Castillo to do a little more homework." The other men reached for weapons and froze when Rosa cleared her throat. "Federal assault charges," she said flatly. "Might complicate your immigration status." Meg gave a single whistle. Zeus returned to her side, fluid and flawless. The lead man stumbled to his feet, brushing off dirt like he still had pride. "This isn't over," he spat. "Actually," Meg replied, "it is. You just don't know it yet." She turned back to Rosa. "Now, about that training schedule. Same time next week?" Later that day, Meg took Apollo to Dr. Edwards' clinic for a routine checkup. A recent detection drill had strained an old injury, shrapnel left over from Fujairah. "Still carrying fragments from the field," Dr. Edwards said, gently checking the scar. "These dogs, they give everything, don't they?" "They do," Meg replied, watching the vet work. "He's had 3 handlers before me, saved everyone." "He doesn't just smell explosives," the vet added. "He senses intent, like today at the diner." Meg looked up. "Word gets around fast in Cedar Creek." "They're escalating," Edwards said quietly. "Testing boundaries. They came by here yesterday, told me working dogs were bad for business. Said I'd have trouble getting supplies if I kept treating them." "And what did you say?" "I said my father treated war dogs from Vietnam, and I'd shut my doors before turning one away." He gave a hard smile. "Might not be the best business decision, but it's the one that lets me sleep at night." Meg's phone buzzed. Messages from Morales, Gutierrez, increased cartel activity, a warning. Elsewhere, inside the cartel's local safe house, Castillo slammed his fist down. "You let a woman and a dog humiliate you? These aren't normal dogs," his man shouted. "They're trained, like the ones at the border." Castillo turned to his enforcer, Miguel. "Then we stop playing nice. Tonight, Cedar Creek learns what it means to ignore the natural order. As the sun dipped behind the hills, Meg watched the sky burn orange from her porch. Zeus and Athena swept the perimeter. Apollo worked the scent wall, a routine that stretched his injury without straining it. Ares lay beside her, ears flicking toward every subtle sound. Her phone buzzed again. This time, anonymous photos. Her truck, her dogs, her daily routine. The last image? Her morning coffee at the diner. "They think they're hunting us," Meg said quietly, showing the phone to her team. Time to show them what real hunters look like. Before we jump into the next part, if you've been following this story and want more, hit that subscribe button. Every view, like, and comment helps keep these stories alive. Now, back to it. The night wrapped around the ranch like a tight blanket, broken only by streaks of distant heat lightning. Then Apollo froze. His body locked in that way Meg had learned to trust, his detection instincts catching something the others hadn't. "What is it, boy?" she whispered, reaching for her night vision gear. Through the green-tinted lens, she saw them. Movement, south fence line. 4 figures, moving low, silent, practiced. Zeus and Athena were already in position. And this time, they weren't waiting. AR stood by the back door, eyes locked on the northern approach. She hadn't been told to. She just knew. After 15 years in combat zones, Meg had learned a simple truth. Her dogs sensed danger long before any camera, drone, or security system ever did. Her phone buzzed. A text from Deputy Gutierrez. "Multiple reports. Cartel vehicles near your area. Sheriff en route." Then it began. The first Molotov cut through the dark, spinning in a fiery arc toward her barn. But before it landed, Apollo's bark rang out, a sharp, practiced signal. Within seconds, the firebomb was neutralized. The sprinkler system Meg had rigged, modeled after cartel tactics she'd studied in other towns, activated instantly, soaking the target and snuffing the flames before they could spread. Meg exhaled sharply. "Amateur hour," she muttered. The scene brought back memories of a near-identical ambush in Roddy. Apollo had saved their entire unit that night. Another flash came from the west. But this time, Athena was ready. The Belgian Malinois moved like smoke, silent, fast, impossible to follow, corralling the intruders with surgical precision straight into the floodlights. Meg triggered them remotely. The yard lit up like daylight. Her voice carried through the stillness. "Federal property. Registered K-9 training facility. You're trespassing." The cartel men hesitated. Their weapons said they weren't here to talk, but the sudden light and the way those dogs didn't flinch broke their confidence. Meg stayed hidden, watching the chaos unfold like a chess match. Zeus and AR executed a flawless flanking maneuver, cutting off the escape. No barking, no wasted energy, just pure, tactical efficiency, the kind you only see in military K-9 units. "Your boss made a mistake," Meg called out. "These aren't police dogs, these are war dogs." Gunfire cracked the air, wild, panicked, no aim. They never got a chance to regroup. Athena and Apollo had already taken down 2 of them, non-lethal moves, quick, controlled, devastating. In the distance, sirens wailed. Sheriff Morales was closing in fast. The last of the attackers bolted, right into a waiting roadblock set by deputies on Meg's access road. AR stayed on them until the cuffs clicked shut. "Professional hit team," Gutierrez said an hour later, collecting shell casings. "But they weren't ready for this." "They thought they were dealing with attack dogs," Meg said, inspecting Zeus's side for injuries. "They're not. Each one's a combat specialist, different roles, different strengths." "Just like Baghdad," Morales added, joining them. "Apollo found that weapon stash behind the false wall. What, 4 seconds before it would have been too late?" "Same principles," Meg nodded. "Apollo reads patterns, caught their approach long before they hit the fence. Athena tracked their point of entry. Zeus and AR predicted their exit strategy. Basic battlefield tactics, executed perfectly by 4 veterans on 4 legs. Doctor. Edwards rolled in a few minutes later, answering Meg's call to check the dogs post-conflict. Maria's place got hit too, he said grimly. Firebombed. But someone warned her. They were ready. The cartel's slipping, Rosa observed. Left behind evidence at both sites. Casings, photos, even a dropped phone. They're used to scaring civilians, Meg said, not going toe-to-toe with veterans. And that, she knew, made them dangerous, but also predictable. Back at their safe house, Emilio Castillo wasn't handling the loss well. He stared down the table, fists clenched, while Miguel Ortiz cradled a dislocated shoulder, courtesy of one of Meg's shepherds. "Why didn't we know about the dogs?" Castillo snapped. "They're ghosts," Miguel winced. "Classified records. But I found something. That place isn't just a police K-9 facility. She's got government contracts." Castillo's expression shifted. Cold. Calculating. "Then we hit her where she can't fight back," he said, pulling up surveillance photos. "Forget the street-level games. We go after her contracts, her clients, her supply lines." Dawn crept over Cedar Creek. Meg reviewed the night's footage in silence. The dogs had operated flawlessly, just like they had in Iraq, Afghanistan, and too many places in between. But something about the attack didn't sit right. It was too sloppy, too loud. "They're probing," she told Zeus, who sat silently by her desk. "Measuring our response, testing our strength." She picked up a spent shell casing the deputies had missed. "Next time, won't be this obvious." Her phone buzzed again. This time, an encrypted message from a former military contact. "Cartel's pushing a major shipment through Cedar Creek next week. You and your dogs, you're a threat to their timeline. Watch your six." Meg looked up. 4 dogs, 4 sets of eyes waiting on her, alert, focused, ready. She'd seen this look before, just before a raid, just before the enemy realized they'd underestimated what a dog team could do. "They thought we were just animals," she whispered, checking her weapons and communications gear. "They're about to learn how expensive that mistake really is." Morning light peeled across Cedar Creek, revealing the scorched remains of Maria's diner and bullet holes in the side of Meg's barn. AR worked the perimeter like clockwork, picking up tracks, scanning for anything missed. Last night was just the opening move. Meg knew the real fight was only beginning. AR signaled a shift in scent. Meg and Deputy Gutierrez followed, tracking the Belgian Malinois across Harold's northern fence line. "They came through here first," Meg said, her voice low. "Used Harold's land as their entry point." AR moved with precision, nose to the dirt, but posture calm, alert, not alarmed. "They passed through hours ago," Meg noted. "You can tell just from how he moves?" Gutierrez asked, surprised. "In Mosul, Arkansas tracked insurgents through open markets hours after they were gone. Saved our unit more than once." Suddenly, Arkansas veered, a sharp turn, a new direction. Meg followed instinctively. "There was a second team," she said. "They weren't part of the attack, just observing, gathering intel." Harold's truck rumbled up the path, his face tight, jaw clenched. "More cut fences," he reported. "They're staging from my land now." "Not just yours," Gutierrez added, tapping on her tablet. 3 other ranchers filed similar reports. They're digging in. Establishing roots. At the Cedar Creek Community Center, Sheriff Morales gathered local business owners. The room was tense, heavy with fear. Maria stood up, voice cracking. "They burned down my diner. Insurance says it's civil unrest. They won't cover a dime. They hit my delivery trucks yesterday," said the grocery store owner. "Told me it's a taste of what's coming if we don't play along." Meg studied the town map spread across the table. Her military brain clicked into gear. They're isolating Cedar Creek, blocking supply routes, cutting access, classic insurgency playbook. "Like in Afghanistan?" Dr. Edwards asked from the back. "Same blueprint," Meg nodded. "Different battlefield. They'd choke out villages, then force dependency." She pointed at key choke points. "They're setting up checkpoints here, here, and here, using ranches as cover." At her feet, Zeus lifted his head, ears twitching at the shift in the room. His training went beyond scent. He read people, detected deception. Sheriff Morales leaned closer. "What about your contracts, Meg? Word is they're threatening your clients now." They can try, Meg replied coolly. My contracts are with federal and law enforcement agencies. The cartel can't touch those directly. She paused. Zeus shifted. But they can block access, delay training, disrupt the supply chain. Gutierrez's radio crackled. Gas station on Route 12 just got hit. They're escalating. Fast. Back at the ranch, Meg reviewed security footage. Apollo sat beside her, nose twitching slightly as she scrolled. His training had evolved far beyond scent. He could detect patterns, changes in movement, disguised intent. Show me, Meg whispered, Apollo's gaze fixed on a specific sequence, vehicles circling at irregular intervals. But together they formed a rhythm, a pattern. Her phone rang. Dr. Edwards. They came by again, he said. This time they didn't threaten. They offered to buy the dogs, said they wanted trained combat animals. Meg's voice turned cold. Not happening. How are you holding up? He asked gently. Lost 3 clients this morning, he admitted. Afraid to be linked to me, but I'm still the only vet in 50 miles certified for working dogs. Then, another text. Unknown number. This one was different. Surveillance photos, her morning meeting, close-ups of her dogs, snippets of her military records. The message was clear. We're watching. A moment later, Harold's truck came roaring down the drive, faster than usual. You need to see this, he said. They're moving something big through the South Valley. Military dogs or not, this is organized. Meg grabbed her gear and climbed to the overlook. With binoculars, she tracked a convoy slipping through the back roads, masked by the hills, invisible from the highway. Athena and AR lay beside her, perfectly still, watching, listening, waiting. They're building a forward operating base, she whispered. This isn't just movement. This is a distribution hub. They're using ranch land as cover. Harold looked at her, fear mixing with frustration. What do we do? Meg's answer was immediate. We change the rules of engagement. She reached for her encrypted phone. They want to play military games, she said, dialing. Fine. Let's show them why combat K9S are called force multipliers. In the cartel's safe house, Castillo reviewed new intelligence. She's been making calls, his informant said. Military contacts, government agencies. Castillo scoffed. By the time help shows up, we'll own the whole town. Miguel Ortiz sat quietly, still favoring the shoulder Zeus had dislocated. Boss, maybe we should... I want that facility shut down, Castillo snapped. I want those dogs working for us, or not working at all. As night fell over Cedar Creek, Meg suited up her team. Each dog was assigned. Each one had a role. Zeus and Apollo on overwatch, Athena on point, AR running recon, invisible in the dark. They think last night was everything we've got, she told them, fastening vests and checking gear. Time to show them what full capability looks like. Midnight dropped shadows across the ranch. Perfect conditions. Meg moved through the darkness, coordinating her team. Zeus scanned from a ridge. Apollo tracked from high ground. Athena slinked through tree lines. AR ghosted the fence, his senses sharp. Morales' voice crackled through the secure radio. County choppers are grounded. Mechanical issues. Someone inside sabotaged the request. Copy that, Meg replied. We stick to the ground game. Gutierrez's voice followed. In position, 3 backup units, all vetted. Waiting on your signal. Through her binoculars, Meg watched the cartel vehicles creep toward her property, unaware they were already surrounded. For days, the cartel had used Harold's access road like clockwork, moving product, people, and power along the same path. And like clockwork, they'd gotten sloppy. Just like that opium plant in Helmand, Meg whispered to Zeus. Same pattern, same mistakes. Fixed routes, overconfidence, predictable rhythms. The kind that get you killed in a war zone. Zeus twitched. He remembered. That mission had earned him a commendation, though the details stayed classified. Then she saw it. Apollo's posture shifted. Barely noticeable to anyone else, but Meg knew the signs. He'd picked something up. She switched radio channels. Rosa, Apollo's got a hit. Sector waypoint 3. Multiple vehicles. Probably loaded. Copy that. Deputy Gutierrez responded. Repositioning units now. The cartel convoy wound through the valley, confident they owned the terrain. They'd bought off officials, threatened landowners, and carved out safe zones. But their arrogance blinded them to the 4 shadows tracking them. Shadows on 4 legs. Athena moved like a breeze through the brush, her body disappearing into darkness. At critical points, she dropped scent markers for law enforcement. No electronics, no traceable tech, just old-school tradecraft. Just like Kandahar, Meg whispered. Low tech, high skill. The convoy reached the Hidden Valley loading area. Meg's intel had been dead on. This wasn't just a distribution hub. They were building something permanent. Doc Edwards, are you seeing this? She asked over the comms. Cameras are rolling, he replied from the roof of his clinic. They're moving weapons too, not just narcotics. That changes everything, Sheriff Morales chimed in. That gives us federal jurisdiction. Suddenly, Arkansas signaled 3 guards, overlapping fields of fire, but the spacing? Sloppy, poor angles, wide gaps. Amateurs, Meg muttered. They're not ready for what's coming. Then, noise at the edge of the field. One of the cartel's own dogs had caught a scent, pulling its handler toward the brush. Meg tensed, but she was already 2 steps ahead. Athena emerged like a specter, her eyes locked. She didn't need to growl. Her presence alone made the cartel's dog back off. The handler reached for his sidearm and froze. Zeus was already there, sights locked, motionless, lethal. Federal operation, Meg called out. Her voice echoed across the valley. You're in a surveillance zone. Panic set in. Vehicles fired up. Men scrambled. Radios buzzed with confusion. Meg was ready for this, too. Apollo had already mapped their escape route earlier that night, and every law enforcement unit was in place. All units, execute containment, Sheriff Morales ordered. Squad cars lit up the valley like fireworks. Blue and red bounced off every tree line. Every official roadblock was covered. But Meg knew better. She watched the brush near the western edge, the real escape route. Right on cue, 3 ATVs burst from the tree line, high speed. Leaders trying to flee. But AR was already moving, herding them like cattle straight into Deputy Gutierrez's trap. Clear, came the call. One by one, takedowns followed. The results? Better than expected. Millions in seized product, weapons, and the jackpot, documentation. They kept written records, Gutierrez said, holding up ledgers. Names, routes, bribes. Meg checked each dog, brushing a hand over fur, checking paws and joints. They got cocky, she said. They thought they owned this town, didn't think they needed operational security. Back at the cartel's safe house, Emilio Castillo seethed. How did they know every route? He snapped. We had every angle covered. It's the dogs, Miguel said, wincing. They're not just trained, they're something else. Then get me Diego, Castillo barked. Tell him to send the special teams. If she wants war, she'll get war. Dawn broke over Cedar Creek. Meg and Morales reviewed the after-action report. $3 million in drugs, a dozen illegal weapons, a complete blow to the cartel's local operation. They'll hit back, the sheriff warned. This was too big a loss to ignore. Let them, Meg replied. They still think I'm just a trainer with pets. Dr. Edwards arrived to check the dogs. His face said it all, grim, tired. Heard they're bringing in specialist units, he said. Good, Meg replied, eyes scanning her phone. More surveillance photos. But now they felt different, not threatening, desperate. They're out of their depth, she said. Time to show them what real special warfare looks like. Zeus raised his head, ears twitching toward the wind. Something was coming. They could all feel it. But Meg and her team had faced worse. Across continents, in every combat zone imaginable. Get some rest, she told them quietly. Tonight was a preview. Before dawn, a fleet of black SUVs slipped into Cedar Creek. Mexico City plates, tinted windows. They moved like shadows, but not invisible ones. Meg tracked them through binoculars, perched in her overwatch position. They split into teams, moved through town in formation. "These aren't locals," she said during the secure morning briefing with Morales. "Military precision. Probably ex-special forces, mercenaries." "How do you know?" Gutierrez asked, flipping through surveillance shots. Meg pointed to the setup. Overlapping observation posts, clean radio silence, coordinated movement. These guys didn't grow up in the cartel. They were hired. Zeus lay at her feet, calm, unmoving, but watching. Because this time, they were hunting predators who thought they were invisible, and they were about to learn. Not all war dogs bark. Meg and her elite K9 unit had spent years tracking high-value targets overseas. Now back home, she faced a new kind of war, one that came wearing suits and carrying military-grade weapons. The cartel wasn't just trafficking drugs anymore. They were building infrastructure, embedding operatives in law enforcement, corrupting officials, and preparing for full control over the quiet town of Cedar Creek. It started with surveillance. Former special forces, now working for the cartel, began probing weaknesses, hitting clinics, monitoring businesses, even attempting to recruit the local vet. But Meg and her dogs had seen this before in Syria, Afghanistan, and Mosul. They didn't just detect threats, they predicted them. As cartel forces escalated, deploying elite teams and combat-trained dogs, Meg's unit countered with precision. Zeus, Apollo, Athena, and Ares, each dog a combat veteran, used battlefield experience to dismantle the enemy's playbook. Their foes had numbers and tech, but no preparation for true military K9 tactics. Attempts to intimidate the town turned into scorched earth strategies, poisoned water, destroyed infrastructure, and chemical weapons deployment plans. But Meg's team anticipated each move. While federal forces mobilized, her dogs identified breach points, intercepted convoys, and neutralized threats silently. The final confrontation took place at an abandoned chemical plant. The cartel's elite, commanders from overseas wars, rigged the site for mass destruction. But Meg's team executed WMD countermeasures perfected in Damascus and Helmand. Zeus and Apollo disabled triggers, Athena and Ares cut off escapes, and with the help of the community and federal task forces, the cartel's leadership was captured. They thought Cedar Creek would be easy to dominate. Instead, they met veterans with teeth. Meg's dogs weren't just trained, they were forged in combat. And in the end, it wasn't firepower that saved the town. It was experience, trust, and the unbreakable bond between warriors.